So how long do you think you'll put on chapstick?
What's up?
How long are you gonna put on chapstick before you're ready?
Well, if this is going to be a video that you're going to post, I want my lips looking supple. And it's not chapstick, it's Blistex. It's a
The same
medicated mint.
exact thing.
It's a medicated mint balm. A lot of people
It's
just
a
call it
what's
chapstick.
what's the word at the end?
It's a medicated mint balm.
Balm.
Yeah.
Saying
What?
bomb? Are you saying bomb?
Balm, mint balm.
How would you spell that?
BALM.
Okay. Because it sounds like you're saying medicated mint bomb.
Medicated mint balm. Balm.
Like something they're setting off
Balm.
in Ukraine right now.
They need. I feel like they have some chapped lips over there. A lot of
Um,
dry air.
what are your worst shows?
Oh man, I love it, dude. That's the best thing is you started hosting this show over a year ago and you still have that type of gusto and energy when asking somebody about their worst shows. Oh, man, that's great, dude. So what's your worst show or whatever?
Well, you've been on this podcast a number of times, and we've talked about a number of things that have happened to you and or around you. You told the one about the house party you performed at. We've talked about some of the like corporate shows we did together and stuff. We did a show pretty recently that should have been a bad show, but it ended up being all right. On first entry, it seemed like it was going to be a nightmare.
Well, I the the takeaway that I had from that show was the I guess heckle that I got. And I always hate when I'm being heckled by somebody because they're offended, but they're offended by absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're just
Some
drunk.
people are just dumb.
Yeah, do you know what I'm talking? What I'm gonna say is
Mm-hmm.
when I mention just Myrtle Beach as an area in the show or in my set, I just said, like when you're going on vacation to like Myrtle Beach, and I was moving on. I wasn't gonna say another thing about Myrtle Beach, and some dude in the audience was just like, "Yo, you talking about Myrtle Beach? I'm from Myrtle Beach, bro. Don't say anything bad about Myrtle Beach." I said, "Yo, are you that defensive, man, that you're mad about Myrtle Beach when you go to a airport and you hear them over the speaker like last boarding call for Myrtle Beach, last boarding call? Are you like, yo, bitch, don't be talking about my city?" It's just I don't even know how to handle it because he's just so dumb or like just
Yeah, sometimes you realize I feel like with shows like that where it's like there's not a lot of order. Like that was a real peacekeeping operation, to use a word that I've heard a lot of recently. That was a real peacekeeping mission of like we had to go in and the goal was to like not the goal wasn't even to give them a good show. The goal was to not lose control of the room. I
yeah.
felt like if they got a good show, that was a icing on the cake. But when I feel like with shows like that, when they're so not disjointed, but when they're not set up like ideally, it just breeds like stupidity,
And
like in chaos.
and I mean, I felt like every joke that we told had to come with a side of a little bit of crowd work, a little bit of stay on task people without actually telling them to stay on task. Because I felt like they were going to be really defensive, clearly, with the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina guy. Like anytime I did something, like you couldn't, because usually in a comedy club, if it had that vibe, you could do some crowd work. But there, anytime you crowd work one person, the room was so big and deep and everybody knew each other that you would lose the rest of the damn audience. That's what was so tough about it.
Well, I think you always know how hard of a show or how hard you've worked to keep a show going well by how much you're sweating when you get off stage. And I was pretty toasty when I got off, but I feel like you were too. Just like there's a lot of sweat like on your forehead, and you're like it's also one of those shows where like you kind of feel spent after. You're like, I got nothing in the tank.
Well,
You
that's why when
know?
I got off, I gave you the ELO. You were like, and I was like, I was working, just like airing my shirt out and sweating my ass off.
And then the worst part is, and people don't mean to do this, but they really should stop, is like I'm all for like people wanting to chat and say hi after the show, but like you got the lingerers. We had a lot of lingerers, and then we had those people that were in the back room that missed the show but knew there was a show going on, so they were trying to like. I think it's how they feel. Like I don't know. It must be in their head what seems appropriate, the appropriate way to talk to a comedian, but it isn't. Where they're like, "Hey, sorry we missed it. What's your life? Tell us something funny. What's going on? You do this a lot? Do you do this? You get a lot of this. Do you do this for real? You really do this? Are you
That's like
kidding me?"
that's the most insulting thing to say. Like the those people, I talked to them while you were on stage. That group of four. There was like four people sitting in this quote unquote green room that they had, a side room off from where we were doing the show. And these four people are sitting there because they got there late, they couldn't get seats. And I'm talking to them while you're on stage, and they're like, "How much time are you going to be doing out there?" I was like, "I have like a little over 50 minutes probably." They're like, "Oh, do you do this a lot?" No, this is my first time, and I'm just gonna start with an hour. That's how we're
Yeah,
gonna do it.
I figured swing for the fences. Yeah, those, and it's also funny where it's like, this is gonna sound so petty or like complainy, but
So
you
it's right on
know,
brand.
it's right on brand. Where like we drive to the show. It's in like and it ended up being a great show, but it's like you drive to the show. It's in like it literally like the boonies, and it's in a bar, and you're like, you're just looking for a little bit of comfort, just because it's such an uncomfortable situation. And they stick us in that side room where when we first get in there, there's like a dad and his daughter eating, and it's just us sitting at another table. And then when we leave for like 10 minutes. And we come back and they like took our chairs and like took our table. And there's just somebody else sitting there and our book bags are there. And it's just like, okay, I guess I'll just stand for the rest of the night.
Oh yeah, just like a single mom eating at the sink, just standing in
Yeah,
the room.
just
And, and
standing.
and to be fair, it that show could have been a disaster, but I had fun. I thought it went really well for it being their first show, but it is one of those things where we haven't flexed that muscle in a while.
Yeah,
At least
it's been a long time since I've had to be in like a literal bar doing a show in like the corner of the bar. And we used to do it all the time.
that
Now
used to be
it's
the
like,
highlight of my week.
yeah, I was like, I have a show in New Kensington in a bar. Like I circled that on the calendar. That was like an old school just like boxing match. That was like we just yeah, we haven't done that in a while. Um and it's like the people are really nice and they're so appreciative because it is the only thing they've got really going on, and that's not even like a condescending thing. That's like the truth. I mean, they'll tell you like this is the only event they might have in their area for months.
Well, and as much as we want to be, as our nature is to be cynical about it or be assholes, it really is a bunch of people in a room that are just looking for entertainment, and the only interaction that they have with stand-up comedy is like what they see on TV or what's now on the internet a ton. Which somebody was just saying this to me, is all these crowd work videos. That's all everybody posts now. So I feel like if you've never been to a real comedy show, you think that it's all going to be crowd work, or you think that it's all going to be super interactive, or you think every show has a heckler now. Somebody was just
Yeah,
saying it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense because people, it's also a thing of like, if you've never been to one, if you actually if you've never been to a comedy club, you really don't know that you're not supposed to like talk, and that it's enforced, for them, hopefully that it's enforced you're not supposed to talk, like people will be
Sometimes.
removed, sometimes it doesn't. So it's hard to like, I think, for people to like realize that there are rules when it seems to be so ruleless, it's supposed to be a night of uh, like frivolity and debauchery, and it's like you're telling us we can't even talk. It's like you're giving us free beer. There's people up there talking about all these personal things and these dirty things or whatever, and making fun of things, and we are not allowed to talk. Like it does unless going into it from experience. I think it's like it's a counterintuitive for them to be like, oh, we can't chat. Like that seems like the least of the problem.
Well, I always think that drinking and going to see a comedy show is in itself almost counterintuitive because I mean, you know me, we've drank together. The last thing that I want
I'm
to do
sober.
right now, but the last thing that I want to do, me too. The last thing that I want to do is get hammered drunk and then go somewhere where I have to be quiet.
Yeah, right.
Like
Yeah.
I don't get being disruptive at a comedy show, but I get it at the same time. Like I don't get going there with the intention of getting drunk, but once you're there, I'm like, yeah, dude, of course this dude was yelling at me the whole time. He was shit faced, and I was talking, and he wasn't allowed to talk, and it got on his nerves because that would happen to me.
We've been to enough parties together where if we're drunk and someone's talking, we can't help but like start yelling. It's like, so yeah, of course. It really is like we and it's so easy to be like, I can't believe those people would drink like that and act like that. And it's like, when you think about your own life, it's like, oh, they were doing literally what I would have done if I was in their shoes, probably.
If I was
Like,
in your shoes as somebody that didn't respect comedy as much as we do doing this the last however many years, and it's but if you're thinking about it as a guy that's just like, oh, I like Bill Burr, let's go see the comedy show at the local comedy club, let's get hammered and let's go watch it. And yeah, I mean, you're not going to have any you know previous experience of seeing a bunch of people around you quiet. You're honestly probably like, man, what are all these losers, what are all these introverts doing, man? People need to get more involved in this shit.
and just to show you like the disparity between like what people's interests are and just where we were at, is that someone, while you were on stage, said to me, they go, we've only seen 2 comedy shows. We just saw Ray the Amish comic, I think that's his name, and then oh yeah, Dave Chappelle. So they saw arguably the polar opposites of comedy pretty recently, and they came to our show. So like they're using those 2 things as like their their tests for like what this night's gonna be. It's like, is it either gonna be like this guy who dresses up like an Amish guy and makes Amish jokes, or is it gonna be like, arguably the best comedian to live, and now who's now like a almost, taking such a social stance on things, like, where is it going to be like that? And like,
I've
so
only
that's,
been That was like I've only been to 2 concerts before, the Rolling Stones and Weird Al Yankovic.
yeah, right. Actually, that was like, that'd be like if they were like, I've only been to 2 concerts, the Rolling Stones and a guy that impersonates Weird Al Yankovic. Because even Weird Al is like, he can move tickets.
He can move tickets, but I'm talking about musically.
Right, musically, yeah, right. I it was so strange. But you did make a good point at the beginning about hecklers and how like dumb that guy is. And like, do you think that people just don't know, or is it like that they don't, I sometimes I feel like people that shout out don't have anybody in their life that's like told them no. You know what I mean? That's like, they sort of like, they must be the friend that's always like got a line or got something to say, you know?
Oh, they're the person that posts the wildest shit on Facebook and all their friends are like posting prayer hands and yep, absolutely right. Bro, I couldn't agree with you more. And any normal person that sees that, that's not one of their yes men, is like, yo, this guy is batshit crazy. He's
Yeah.
not a normal person. The I've gotten those dumb heckles like that before, those yell outs. Did I ever tell you? I don't think I told it on here. I've been on here 100 times. But the Brian Ryan heckle,
No, no, no.
I did this corporate years ago in West Virginia with T Robe, and it was for like a company, and it seemed like a fancy event, and it was in this like cool decorated airplane hangar, and I'm on stage, and a guy calls out and like, "Hey, what's your name, man? You seem like a tough man's man. What's your name, like Buck?" And he goes, it's Brian. I was like, "Oh, Ryan." He was like, "No, no, Brian with a B." And I go, "Oh, thank God it wasn't one of those pussy names like Ryan, like a loser." And this guy, like, I said it so fun loving and like goofy, like, "Oh, thank God it was," and it's like almost the same name. This guy stands up and he starts swearing at me. He's like, "I'll kick your ass, bro. I'll kick you for real." And like his girl's literally like holding his shirt back. And I'm like, "Oh, well, I guess we know who's named Ryan in the audience." It's like, man,
Oh, so it's a different guy gets up and yells.
yeah, because the one guy, it was his name was Brian, the first guy I
Right.
was talking to, and I was like, "Ryan?" He was like, "No, Brian." I was like, "Yeah, Brian's a cool name. Ryan is a lame name." And then this guy took direct personal offense to it, stands up wanting to fight me, and that's when I was like, "I guess we know who's named Ryan." Jesus, man, I was like, "This is your work party."
Yeah. Sean Murphy, I was just on here the other day and said that he thinks that work parties are the new worst types of audiences where like bachelor and bachelorette parties have kind of like, they're like, so it's almost hack now. If you're like a like loud bachelor or bachelorette party, it's like, we figured you were going to be like this, like,
Yeah.
okay, we get it, you're getting married, you know. But he said office groups and office parties are the worst because we were talking about it. It's like, it's a group of people that only know each other in a very corporate place. And now they have the chance to like show everybody how fun they are. And I feel like they really cut loose to be like, "Hey, I'm not a stiff. I'm not an office stiff. I'm fun. I'm
Dude,
fun."
that's pretty on point because I remember even just going out to happy hours when I worked in a corporate setting, and you would get to the happy hour and it would all hell would break loose. You know, it would be the one dude that was an alcoholic, and you finally start to feel, what's going on in his life because he's ripping shots. He doesn't want to leave the bar. He's arguing with his wife on the phone, and then a lady cries. Some lady that you work with always ends up crying, and then the weird part is I know this, so I usually kind of mind my P's and Q's while I'm in that situation. But it's like these other people that I don't think go out and party enough, and this happy hour was their one chance to let loose. And then I want to be like, "Hey, man, easy on the shots. You know, we're all back at work Monday. You know, we're all
Sometimes you're back at work the next day.
true.
Like the happy hour, I feel like you've been to a lot of happy hours. Like you've been to
My
a
whole life's a
ton.
happy hour, baby."
You really do live your life like it is one long happy hour. Like you are just one plate of mozzarella sticks away from just having yourself a good day. Like,
Look how I'm dressed.
oh my God. Yeah, I think the office parties though, it's like, that is funny. Like somebody usually does get very upset, but it's like, and then there's a turn. I feel like there, like it takes a turn where like, you're like, oh, he's crazy. Like Mark is so crazy. He's so funny. And then like it takes a turn where it's like Mark has a gun in his mouth. Like Mark
But
is daring us to pull
hey,
the
let's
trigger.
let's check on the details of the employee assistance program for Mark.
Yeah,
Let's see what kind of mental health benefits we're getting from the company.
Mark is trying to get us to play Russian roulette in the Applebee's parking lot. He pulled a revolver out of his glove box. And he's telling us all to live a little.
Like, you work at an insurance company. What is going on?
Oh my God. What that Brian Ryan thing's so funny. So what happened? Did the guy like get settled down or?
Yeah, he finally settled down, but I did goof about it a little bit, and he was not loving it, and he did not love the rest of the set. I think I was up there for like 5 or 6 more minutes, and he was just scowling at me, like sitting down angrily, arms folded, staring at me. And everybody at his table still seemed to be enjoying it. And after, somebody gave me the, yeah, man, sorry about Ryan, man. He was really drunk. I was like, who's I don't know Ryan.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. There's
And
nothing worse than a guy that's like at a comedy show with a girl and has something to prove.
that's our we're their worst nightmare.
Yeah.
In
Right.
fairness, I mean, I don't have a lot of things that can make another dude super jealous. You know, I'm not rich. I don't know if you knew that. I'm not rich.
Really?
I was actually going to ask you to borrow money after this, but I'm not. I'm pretty handsome, but I'm slightly overweight. Some would say moving into the obese category.
You think you're moving in?
What's up?
You think you're moving in?
That chart that everybody goes by is BS, man.
I think it's actually BMI.
That BMI chart, they are not accounting for height, that I'm Polish. They're not accounting for,
How much fun you had when you were in college?
water weight, sodium. You know what I mean? At any given day, I could fluctuate 15 pounds. Just depends on how many. It just depends on if I take off my prosthetic leg. But anywho, but the one thing that can make a guy like that jealous that's taking his girl there is a person that has a platform to make everybody in the room laugh. I mean, that's the only way I've ever gotten a girl to like me, is to be funny. And then these guys are like, and now we're doing it professionally. These guys don't have a chance if you're,
And it's like they're probably, that's the one thing they don't have going for them. It's like, I don't know. I feel like it's the same guy every time. It's like a guy usually drives like a truck or some sort of like 4-wheel drive vehicle. And he's like, these guys never drive like
I love how much
Corolla.
you know about cars.
Like I mean, like some sort of large SUV. Like they never drive an Accord or a Corolla, these guys. And like they probably have like a hat on with like a blacked out American flag, and like a super tight t-shirt. Like
those dudes.
Like pipes just pushing through the sleeves. And it's always like that's the thing they're least good at, is being funny. Like they could work with their hands, maybe they could fight. I don't know.
Do you mean those guys that will wear dress clothes, but also that same blacked out American flag hat to somebody's baptism?
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. Like, I just feel like they're in every crowd, and like their relationship is really just built on the fact that like their girlfriend or their wife is like, well, he's a good man. Like that's what he's
usually in a union of sorts.
Yeah, at least he's a good man. He's not that funny, he's not that charismatic, and he's not very charming, but he's a good man. A real man.
Also a real man, yeah.
And then they come to a comedy show, and it's sometimes I think it's the first time they've ever seen their significant other laugh for real. Like they're like, they've been laughing at home, but it hasn't been real laughter, and then they
That's
see it.
so good, dude. That they've been getting a fake laugh this whole time from their girl. And
Yeah.
then he's in the car driving in that four-wheel drive vehicle that you were talking about. And he's just like,
Mhm.
so what the hell is that sound coming out of your mouth? Well, I ain't never heard a laugh like that before. Which one's the real one? It's like, which one do you think? You know?
Hey, do you love me or not? Just
You think the real laugh was when you two were watching Last Man Standing together? Or
right. Yeah, those guys always, you know what those guys are really good at? Reposting and sharing memes. That's
oh
like
yeah,
they're so good at finding like a meme about someone being too drunk, be like, and this is their take on it. This is how brilliant they are. We could do like a master class on these guys. They get a meme and then they send it in their group thread, which is like it's basically their group thread is their best friends and then all of their best friends' wives who have now been pulled into this group thread. And it's like, this is totally Kevin. That's their line. They go, this is totally Kevin, LOL. And
yo,
then
there are some Kevins listening to this that are gonna feel attacked. There are some people that are gonna feel attacked.
I'm
At
talking about people that are only killing in the group thread, and then they come to a show and they see their friends or their girlfriend or their wife laugh for the first time really hard. And they're like, they just feel so challenged, which is weird because I don't go to a mechanics and watch them change my brakes really quickly and being like, yo, dude, like you trying to, what are you trying to do? Like, trying to embarrass me with how good you are at changing my brakes?
did you say something about the name Collin, bro?
Yeah. What do you yeah, dude, I could be a mechanic. I'm just like it is weird. It's like one of the only jobs where people are like, dude, I could do that too. If I wanted, I could totally do that.
It's the only job that it feels like everybody can do. And I mean, sometimes when you look at it, you're like, yeah, I mean, I guess I get it because it's just a dude standing up there with, or a lady. I think they're doing it now too. Can stand up there with a microphone.
Right.
You know, it looks like it takes very little skill or effort on the surface, but it just couldn't be less the case. People,
Yeah, it takes like all of the effort and skill to pull it off. And then so when these like, I don't know, like my thing is when these people heckle, I'm always like, I feel like the rule is like try to get the audience to hate them. Like you have to get the audience to disapprove of what they're doing, and you can't be one on one. It's got to be many on one. You know,
well, yeah, because what can happen is sometimes you over punish that heckler.
I've done that.
Oh, I've seen you do it.
I
You know
mean,
what I'm
I go
you know
ahead.
what I was thinking about? Do
Hmm.
you remember when we did that show at I think it was like the Kennedy Township VFW
Yeah,
or fire department?
I
And
remember.
it was like a rowdy show for no apparent reason.
It was a
And,
football booster. It was a football booster, and specifically one guy was like hammered.
I know. And we were on the heels of moving out of Pittsburgh, and you went up and snapped. You were like, "You're a loser, dude. You're a loser. You're trying to ruin the comedy show with your kid's football booster. Do you even have a kid here? You seem like the type of guy that hangs out at football boosters that doesn't have a kid." You were just losing it. And I was standing in the back with your dad and Sammy, and it was like one of the first times they met, I think.
It was the first time they met.
We're just all bad. Like I'm like sitting in between them, and your dad just not knowing how to address the situation was like, huh, guess that guy's really getting on Colin's nerves, huh? You think? But
I
it was
was
fun.
yeah.
People, that was one of those things where people, you didn't necessarily over punish them to make the audience mad at you, but they liked it and were laughing at it, and I think wanted more of it, so they didn't want him to leave. You know?
I think it's like sometimes the audience quickly like turns their back on their own, like You're like, ah, you're out here by yourself now. Like,
Yeah.
I was at a show recently where like there's a table in the front that was like chatty, and like people behind them were like shushing them, just constantly shushing them. And it's like, at what like I don't understand these people's motive. It's like you talk to once or twice. Like what is the thing where you think you'll just eventually you'll just convince everybody, and they'll be like, you know what? You made a good point. I'm actually glad you kept talking. You were better. It was better. I'm glad we spent the money to just see you instead.
Those types of people are just so purely oblivious and inconsiderate. Like that inconsiderate nature, I think, just comes so second nature to people,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something that I can never understand. I feel bad about ruining somebody's night, you know. And I've used this, and I think this is a little corny, but I think it's so true. And I've mentioned this maybe on your podcast before, but when I've been in situations where there's a chatty crowd or like a chatty section of the crowd, maybe like a table, and I've went at them a couple times, maybe tried to be funny, tried to be cutesy, and then I've said before, "Hey, I'm getting paid for this regardless of how much you all talk, but there's a lot of people here that didn't come here to listen to your conversation. So if you can just, shut up for them maybe." And the crowd loves that. If because
Yeah.
you can tell they're disrupting it. And I do, I mean, as corny as that sounds, to do, and it's not being clever, it does, I do mean it. Because after a certain, we've done enough bad gigs where if a gig's going bad and you're getting paid for it, you do kind of go into the mode sometimes of, I'm just gonna put my head down and, you know, get this money, and there's not really much I can do. But when you could see the audience and see some people are trying to pay attention and have a good time, you're kind of like, well, shit, man, these people paid to see a show. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a good way of like putting a real, I mean, you're almost putting a number on how much these people are ruining everybody else's night. Where you go, hey, you're reminding people you paid for tickets, you paid to get a babysitter, you bought drinks, you went out to dinner, you had to pay for parking, you had to pay for gas to get here, and this person doesn't respect all of that. This person that's talking thinks that they're better than you, basically. And if you can convince the audience of that, I mean, I've had certainly, you too, where people were just like, by the time someone is tossed, everyone's just like, get him out of here, get him out of here.
You get that
Like,
standing ovation.
yeah, yeah, or just because people are so. I really, I like it when I think the perfect, and I don't think I don't like when people talk in general, but like I think the perfect thing is somebody says something, right? And then you go either what did you say, or you hear them and you have a line, and they sort of like laugh it off, and then it's like it leads to a great moment of improvised crowd work, but then that's it, and it's just like one and done, and they don't feel the need to engage any further. It's almost like they were just like, let me just see what happens. Let me see what
Yeah.
happens if I stick my toe in the water. Oh, it's cold. I'm going to come back. And
And it's
that's
also
it.
like they get it.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's almost like you kind of have a nod with them. You're like, hey, you came in, we played a little, get out. I got the rest of the show to do.
Right. I
I
said that. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I think Dylan Krasinski talked about the Boston show that we did on
Mm-hmm.
here. Um, that same show, I had a pretty, not even a brutal heckler, but it was right off of the stage at the Hideout, which was a great room, and I had a lot of fun and a fun set. But there were these two girls, and they would not quit talking the whole time, and I kept engaging them several times. I'd get them to be quiet. Finally, like 20 minutes into the set, and I posted a little video clip of it on my Instagram at Ravy Killing Them, and I like kind of snapped, dude. I was like, "Hey, are you that oblivious that you think, I was talking to you just because this is what I do?" I was like, "You were just the only ones talking this whole time." And even after I had this whole interaction, I kind of get the crowd on my side because they were noticing it, like you said, that same thing. But then they still kept going. And whether it was alcohol or whether it was, that's just how those people are. And I was stuck in between kind of a hard place too because I didn't know how close friends they were with Dylan. Because I get it, it's like, you know, my job, but I still don't want to be outright mean to somebody's friend or family or something like that. That's a friend of mine, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, you remind me, and I've certainly probably talked about this on the Patreon and stuff, but uh, it it's difficult when you've nailed two things. I feel like
Yeah.
one is attractive women, drunk attractive women.
They were so hot, dude.
They really do feel so carefree and entitled. I feel like that
Do you know why?
they.
'Cause nobody tells them to shut up.
Yes, right. I mean, it's the same thing as the dudes, you know, it's just it may be worse. And they feel like with a guy, it's like if a guy heckles, you can make fun of him, you can make fun of him, you can make fun of him. And if it gets to the point where he stands up and he wants to be violent, then he's gone. Usually.
Yeah.
Usually. A girl is never gonna be like, well, then let's fight. I'm gonna fight you, I feel like, for the most part. And so it just continues. But you if it's an attractive woman who's inebriated and it's potentially they're there because they're friends with someone that's on the show, running the show. I mean, I can't help but remember the show we did a while back, the night before Thanksgiving, for some friends of ours.
Yeah.
And it was a room full of like, middle-aged, upper middle class to upper class, attractive drunk women. And I'll never forget John Evans. I mean, we were all snapping. It was truly one of like the hardest, like,
It was a
just
war zone, dude.
it was a war zone. But I'll never forget John Evans was up early and he was like, because we were coming in hot, we were coming in late. We convinced our Uber driver. Remember, we convinced our Uber driver to come to the show.
Gonna say.
Yeah,
that was so great. We got the Uber driver to come. I didn't think he was gonna actually come in. He
I
parked.
know. We like had a beer with him and stuff.
Yeah.
And then he was just somebody else's problem.
And Evan, what did Evan say to us? I don't remember.
Evan said to one of the ladies, because there was a lady in the back, she kept complaining about pizza. She was like, "Where's my pizza? Where's my pizza?" He's like, "This isn't a Domino's." He's like, "What are you talking about?" And then you could just tell he snaps. He just goes, "My job as a comedian is to find the dumbest person in the room and play to that lowest common denominator. And tonight I figured it out who it was pretty quickly." And it was just like it was just like it was so cutting and so like personal. And like to call someone the lowest common denominator is just like it's such a like, you don't just come up with that. Like that takes a lot of thought. And that was just, again, it was one of those things. It's like they feel a little bit like that they're immune because they're friends with the person that's running the show that they're doing a show for.
Yeah. I forgot about that. I remember that now. I've never been that mean on stage. That's a mean ass line. I mean, I like it. I appreciate it. I just don't have the I mean, I still, regardless of how bad a crowd is, I know, and if people want to listen back, I told the story about bombing at the Comedians and Casino night and how rough that was. I still, after realizing how rude those people were, a part of me still wanted them to like me.
Yeah. I've gotten into this thing where when I'm on stage and someone's continuing to go, I will like start to break down everything that I've had to do to be there. And sometimes it's not funny, but it's like I feel like I have to do it for me.
I've seen.
It's just like really
I drove all the way here, 6 hours. Gas cost me $55. I'm only making this much money.
Right.
I'm hoping that, I'm hoping that I could sell some hats after this so I can get some food. It's like, and I just need to get these jokes out.
Right. Yeah. I just need to get these out because if I don't, like, it's one of those things where you're like, sometimes the show is all we get. We're losing money. The food stinks, or we're not eating well. The lodging usually stinks. And all we have to hang our hats on is like well, at least it'll be a good show, or at least I'll get to run these new jokes, or at least I'll get the experience, or blah, 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 blah. I'll make a couple new fans, blah, all the lies we tell ourselves. And when people take that from me, then I'm like, I've had enough. I can't take it anymore.
I will say though that I never consciously thought of that is when you're doing a gig that is purely that almost for the love of the game
Yeah.
type of deal where you kind of know you might be losing out, but it might be a good show, good exposure. It kind of rarely is though. Usually when you sacrifice all those things, like I would say a higher percentage than not, it is usually a rough show.
It's usually rough because the good shows usually take care of you. It's
Fair.
like, but there
Fair.
have been some times when I have definitely like, okay, you sometimes you got to drive and lose money to showcase at a club or whatever, and like that's sometimes it. But yeah, I totally agree. Where you're like, I'll drive, sure, I'll drive 3 hours for $50 at a bar because it's a new city I can put on my list, and then you go there and there's like 3 people, and you never go back to that city again, and you're like, okay, this was horrible.
Yeah, or like those you're going there because not even for the money. You're like, I really want to run through this longer amount of time, and I don't have anywhere to
Right.
do it this weekend. And then you go there and do it, and it's almost like, I mean, the not making money, the driving that far, and it being a town I've never heard of should have been pretty good indicators that the comedy fandom there wasn't going to be insane.
Right. Yeah. The fact that I had to, the fact that I had to like take out all these ads, and I don't on Instagram, and I can't get like a location for the town we're in. You know what I mean? Like that's never a good sign when you like, or you're Google Mapsing to where the show is, and it takes you like, you're like, oh, it's in this town. And then you're like, oh, it's 30 minutes past that. Like, there's just a lot of, there's some tells when you're like, this is not going to be good, before you even get there.
That's what circling back, that gig that we did, I will say had all the tells of something that was gonna tells had all the
Telltale sign.
oh Edgar Allan Poe, uh, all the signs of something that was gonna be bad and it wasn't, which is always nice. Because right when we pulled off the highway and my GPS still said like 35 minutes, and we're just going down this road with no street lights and barely wide enough for two cars and just people's homes. It felt like we were driving through a long driveway, and we were like, I've been here before.
Yeah.
But that's been great,
It was a great show. Raymond, you just started a new podcast, and you talk about all the hot button issues now. You talk about politics, you talk about race relations, you talk about, and you give some pretty, I don't always agree with what you say on your new podcast, but you make some interesting points. And I think you've created a dialogue, at least for a lot of social issues.
Thank you. Everybody go out and listen to it. It's called the Ben Shapiro Podcast.
Wait a second. All right. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong show notes. I thought this was about, okay, sorry. You have a new podcast called Brand New Jerks. It's about people pleasing.
Yes, that's it. See, that's how much of a people pleaser I am, is that I just went along with the bit.
You just went along with it. That's nice of you. Where can people find this new podcast, and tell people what it's and who is with and what you're doing?
Great. We could use an introduction like that on Saturday. It's Brand New Jerks. It's me and one Sean Donnelly, who's been a guest on Hell Gigs as well. And it's a podcast for recovering people pleasers. We're both guys who desperately want to be liked by everybody, and we've noticed so far that that may not always be the way to go. So we just kind of talk about a lot of different things from that people pleaser's perspective, and you could find it on Apple, Spotify, Google, if people still use that one.
Just Google it. You just recommending people to Google it?
Hey, you could just Google it.
Is it? Nope. Is it on YouTube?
It is. It is on. It is on YouTube as well.
Can you hear that in the background, by the way?
No, is it your dog?
No, my dog's just dropping a bunch of stuff.
Oh, it's it's yeah, and we got a TikTok up and running, brand new Jerks Pod, and you can catch it on YouTube. Comes out every Thursday, and it's a fun show. So
It is a fun show. It's a fun show. And you are on the social medias, Ray be killing them. You got all the fun videos coming out. You do all the crazy stuff, carpool karaoke. That I love when you do that. And when you do the stunts, I love the stunts. I love when you have people on the show and they talk about they do their top 10 things. When you do there's a top 10 places to eat. There's top 10 reasons to never go to Maine. The top 10s are you do so funny.
And thank you so much. I've been, wow, that's really means a lot. I'm glad that you're watching. I also do a lot of parkour videos still. I'm still hardcore into parkour.
I love the new man on the street stuff you're doing called Ray Walking, where you go out and you quiz people on what's going on. I love Ray Walking. So good.
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to raise awareness for heart health. So
raise. Oh, that would be a great that would be you could do something with that. Just obviously
can I use that?
TM, it's mine now.
Okay.
Raise awareness. RAYS awareness.
Raise awareness.
RAYS. I don't know if the camera just shook, but my roommate just opened the fridge door and banged it into the table. I'm things are changing. The situation here is very fluid, and it's fast and loose here right now.
You sound like you're reporting live from Kviv.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
This fast and loose here, Darren. We don't know what's happening. We're getting new information every 5 minutes. It seems pretty contentious here.
Yeah. Live from the capital, Hell Gigs, live from Kiev, and there's a lot going on.
Wouldn't that be so funny if you took your comedy podcast that has nothing to do with any level?
Are you kidding me? My podcast is called Hell Gigs, and some of these people are have to get a job as a soldier. That's the perfect thing. It's like, yeah, true. Like I had a gig for a week in the civil defense team.
You gotta find some Ukrainian comics.
Or just some Ukrainians. Do you know any?
Huh?
Do you know any Ukrainians?
I have zero friends who.
Oh, we could have just ended it right there. I'm gonna end it right there.
I have zero friends, so instead of subscribing to the podcast, just be my friend.
Yeah, I this is how the podcast is gonna end. I have zero friends. It's just the outro music.
Is that your music?
Yeah, something like that.
It's a Led Zeppelin ripoff.
Actually, kind of. Raymond, thank you for coming on and taking time out of. I know you're busy schedule. Going through. I know you have a lot going on in your apartment right now. You're working on a ton of different characters, and between all the different identity crises you have. This means a lot that you could make time. You're kind of like, you're like if the movie Split was made with John Belushi. Instead of James McAvoy in the movie Split, who has 27 different personalities, it would be like if it was a comedy and it was John Belushi instead.
That would be a good flick.
That'd be a really good movie. All right. Thanks for coming on. And everybody go check out Ray and Sean's new podcast, Brand New Jerks.
All right. I'll see you later, Collin.
Bye-bye.